Hey guys, good morning. Today we are going to discuss another beautiful poem by John Donne. We all know that he is a master of conceit and always like to have fun playing around with words. This poem is perhaps an excellent example of that. A few lines about the author's thought. This elegy was written sometime between 1593 and 1596, the phase when he was particularly writing love poems. It was put up for publishing in his posthumous collection called Poems, but was rejected. It was later published in the anthology The Harmony of the Muses in 1654. This poem combined the styles of both Petrarch and Ovid and is considered to be the 90th elegy of his series of poems. In this poem, we can find that the speaker is asking his beloved to love him, and this he does by collaborating and comparing his lover's body to the scientific interventions and breakthroughs that took place in his time. We can take this poem to be a milestone of history as it covers some of the major discoveries of his time. Let us begin this wonderful poem. Come, madam, come, all rest my powers defy. My dear, please come to me. If you do not come, all the energy that I have been saving to love you would be wasted. Until I labor, I in labor lie. Until I work out my love to you, I have to lie here in pain, waiting for you. Do you notice the way the word labor is being used as a pun to indicate the pain as in labor and the work? He is definitely a brilliant fella. The foe, oftentimes having the foe in sight, is tired with standing, though he never fight. Foe means the enemy. He is now comparing his lover to an enemy at war. Even when we have the sight of the enemy, or when closely observing the foe, if it does not make a move, then the hunter would grow weary of waiting and waiting. Have you ever thought that someone you love can be called an enemy? Donne did. Off with that girdle, like heaven's zone glistering, but a fairer world encompassing. Now, something has caught his eye. It is the girdle that his lover is wearing. Girdle means some sort of a belt that is worn around the waist and it is glittering. Glistering means glitter. It is an old English usage of that term. Now, he is saying that this girdle is reminding him of heaven and its lights of eternity. This was the discovery that I was talking about. You see, it was during his period that the constellations were discovered, and in particular, there was this Orion constellation that sort of joined in the middle to form the Orion belt. See in the middle portion? This is what I was talking about. The reference to Orion is significant because it opened up a way to know more about heaven or other earths. Here, a far fairer world might have been the reference to heaven or the heaven the lovers are going to create together. Unpin that spangled breastplate which you wear, that the eyes of busy fools may be stopped there. His lover is wearing a breastplate like in an armor. Maybe his lover was at the army fighting. In the next line, we can find the phrase called the busy fool. He has used the same phrase in his another poem, The Sun Rising. A busy fool means someone who continuously does something without thinking much. Both these lines together could mean that the armor is too sparkling or shining that it has attracted the eyes of the passers by. So he wants his lover to remove them so that no other eyes may follow them in. Unlace yourself, for that harmonious chime tells me from you that now it is bedtime. Untie your shoes, so that the harmonious chime that is produced would lull me and say to my body that it is bedtime. So now the poet compares his lover's unlacing sound to that of a calm lullaby. It is peculiar that Donne must have made a reference to either a corset that has a lace or the chopine, which is a kind of outer shoes that has a lace too. What was on the composer's mind we might never know. Off with that happy busk which I envy, that still can be and still can stand so nigh. The speaker asks his lover to remove the busk. It is called the happy busk because it might have been a gift by someone. In the late 16th century, the corset used to have a busk made of whalebone that was placed in front to give the wearer a straight posture. This is significant because sailors used to gift their loved ones these busks with beautiful carvings as a remembrance. And the speaker is said to envy it, maybe because the lover has it from someone else or because he could not gift one either. Nigh means almost near. This could mean that the speaker's lover is lover also to someone else. This calls for the figure of speech double entendre. A double entendre is a statement that is innocent in the outlay but has an inner meaning which may not be so innocent. This was the chopine that I was talking about. See the lace in that shoes? This was the outer shoes that the people used to wear, and the original shoes used to be fit inside this so that their new shoes won't be dirty. Your gown going off, such beauteous state reveals, as when from flowery meads the hill's shadow steals. A gown, unlike present times, was an outer garment that was worn by both men and women in the late 16th to early 17th century, which is precisely the time when Donne wrote this poem. The speaker now compares the lover's gown going off to the hills that cast a shadow over the beautiful flowery meadow. He means to say that the outer pompous garment with sequins and glitters were shadowing the frail beauty inside of his lover. His lover is beautiful even without the beauty modifications. Another thing to note is that all this while there hasn't been a reference as to who his lover was. It can either be a man or a woman because in all these stanzas both the gender specific statements were given. Off with that wiry coronet, and shew the hairy diadem which on you doth grow. He wants his lover to remove the wiry coronet and show him the beautiful crown of hair that is growing on his beloved's head. Wiry because the coronet was made of hair. Diadem means a round band worn around the head in a circle. This might have been to say that his lover was not from the aristocratic family that had coronets being handed down through generations. But his lover still had one, and it was made of hair, maybe because to him his lover was precious. Now, off with those shoes, and then safely tread in this love's hallowed temple, this soft bed. Now, since all the heavy armor and shoes has been laid down, the speaker wants his lover to safely walk into his abode of love. In such white robes, heaven's angels used to be received by men. Though angel brings with thee a heaven like Muhammad's paradise, and though ill spirits walk in white, we easily know this by these angels from evil sprite. Those set our hairs, but these are flesh upright. Now, after the heavy outer garments have been taken off, they are now ready to rest their heads. The plain white robe that his lover is in resembles the angels that come down on earth to reveal heavenly messages to humans. His lover is being compared to an angel, and he is now waiting for his heavenly messenger. A heaven like Muhammad's paradise can be taken as a reference to the religious renaissance that was taking place in his time, which started to accept other religions as well. He says that humans can recognize the evil spirits from the good ones because when the evil ones come near you, you become afraid or they scare you. But on the contrary, the good ones give you a pleasant feeling. Flesh upright is to scare someone off their bones. License my roving hands, and let them go before, behind, between, above, below. O my America, my newfound land, my kingdom, safeliest when with one man manned, my mine of precious stones, my empire. How blessed am I in this discovering thee, to enter in these bones is to be free. A roving is the bundle of unspun strands of fiber. The speaker is asking his beloved to give him the permission to embrace his lover, just like how a roving is spun to make beautiful garments. He further goes on to say that his beloved is like the newfound land of America. He shares the joy of Christopher Columbus, who discovered America before any man did. He says that he has found this kingdom, so he is the sole king, and all the treasures that lie within these lands belong to him as well. He also says that he feels blessed to have met his lover and be in the bonds of love happily. This portion is particularly important because it highlights the importance of two discoveries, one of the production of clothes and the other of the discovery of America. Then, when my hand is set, my seal shall be full nakedness. All joys are due to thee. As souls unbodied, bodies unclothed must be, to taste whole joys. gems which you women use are like Atlanta's balls cast in men's views, that when a fool's eye lighteth on a gem, his earthly soul may covet theirs, not them. This portion may have been the reference to the expeditions undertaken by the British Kingdom to far off places and adding them under their authority by way of the hand and seal. While moving through these lines, we can see that there is a characteristic plural tone to most of the words used here. This may be indicative of the fact that the speaker might have sought sensual pleasure from many souls irrespective of gender. The line "to taste whole joys" is specifically important because of the theory of Neoplatonic love that was prevalent in Donne's time. Neoplatonic love says that there are two types of love: physical and spiritual. Spiritual love is at a higher level than the physical. Here, Donne beautifully combines both these concepts and says that for spiritual love to happen to humans, there needs to be a connection of souls through physical love. Gems which women use are generally like the distractions that Atalanta faced in her game. Atalanta's balls are the reference to the Greek mythological story of Atalanta, who refused to marry any of her suitors. On constant pressuring, however, she promised her father that she would marry the suitor who won a race with her. Hippomenes, seizing the opportunity, threw golden apples at her during the race, which she stopped to pick up. In the meantime, Hippomenes won the race and eventually married her. Just like that, all the outer embellishments are of no use to the eye of the suitor who is deeply in love with the women. Covet means to desire. Like pictures or like books' gay coverings made for laymen, or are women thus arrayed? Women always dress up beautifully to attract the eyes of the layman, according to the poet. Arrayed means to dress up. Themselves are mystic books, which only we, whom their imputed grace will dignify, must see revealed. Only for those men whom women consider worthy enough of their love will they open up their mystic books to reveal the charm inside of them. Then, since that I may know as liberally as to a midwife show, thyself cast all year this white linen hence. Just like how you bear yourself in front of a midwife, you have to be bare with me. There is no penance due to innocence to teach thee, I am naked first. Why then, what needest thou have more covering than a man? Finally, the speaker has ended the poem by saying that there would be nothing wrong in doing something that you may not know. This may be suggestive of the fact that the lover may be a virgin. As a matter of fact, the lover is ready to guide her to paths that will help her attain spiritual love at last. I hope you have all understood the meaning of the poem. Now, we will move on to the analysis of the poem. First up is libertine poetry. It was a movement in the Renaissance period that rejected the conventional ways of writing poetry to more advanced and experimental poetry. This elegy combines the gracelessness of drawing the beauty of the lover but with aggressive lines, as in your gown going off such beauteous state reveal. Anti-blazon. Blazon is the French word for coat of arms. Therefore, it means a covering. But in this poem, Donne is publicly disrobing his mistress, as in, off with that wiry coronet, and shew the hairy diadem which on you doth grow. This is what is meant by anti-blazon. Allusion is the reference to old fables or mythological stories, as in gems, which you women use are like Atalanta's balls. Conceit and metaphors. Metaphors are used to compare one thing to another without using the words like or as. A conceit is an extended version of a metaphor. In the lines, "O my America, my newfound land, my kingdom safeliest when with one man manned." The metaphor here is that the lover is being compared to America, but the conceit is the comparison of joy of discovering his lover to that of the discovery of America. Neoplatonism is idea of discovering spiritual love in physical love. Donne makes this point clear in the lines as shown. As souls unbodied and bodies unclothed must be to taste whole joys, only the passionate souls can find the spiritual love. Double entendre refers to the use of double meaning. In the line, there is no penance due to innocence. The double meaning intended is the virginity of his lover and the sensual pleasure derived from it. Thank you all for listening to my class. Kindly give a like if you like this class, share this video and subscribe to my channel. Bye for now. See you in the next class.